Last session of the conclave. Before we had the discussions and debate, Mr. Aaron from British Dyslexia Association is here, and Malcolm Litton will introduce him to us.
Hello everyone. Aaron has been someone I've known for quite a time now. We came into contact through the BDA, and currently we both serve on the BDA's New Technologies Committee, which is where we try to keep up to date with technology. She's always racing ahead of us, and we're trying to desperately know enough to be able to pass on information to all the members of the BDA and other educationists as to what is happening in the world of technology that will affect dyslexia. Aaron has spent time on the road in a van, going around introducing technology to people all over the UK. So he's extremely knowledgeable in that way, but he's also the president or chairman, which is the right word, chairman of his own local area dyslexia association. That's one of the things that the BDA has promoted over the years, that wherever a group of parents get together, they can form a local dyslexia association, and it's been a really important way of empowering parents and supporting their children. So he runs the Dyslexia Association along with other people in Leicester, and it's something which he has been involved with for many years. I think his role now is to come and tell us a little bit about what's happening in the UK on assessment. Okay, it's going wider than just that, I gather. So, he's someone who will be very well informed, and I hope will prove really useful in your discussions when you're looking at what should happen in India.
Thank you, Malcolm. I haven't got a UTI to start with, just to put that out there. I'm not going to actually take glasses off, and I'm definitely not going to talk about the DSM-5. So as Mark said, my name is Aaron Smith, and I'm currently now an education consultant in the UK. I've had 15 years of experience working in the field of dyslexia, and my biggest experience is that I am severely dyslexic. Very much like Kabir was talking about earlier in his dyslexia, I have had many experiences of failing through life, but moving to a point where dyslexia is now very much part of my life. I like being called dyslexic, I like being referred as being dyslexic, and that has kind of led me to where I am today. I was diagnosed as being dyslexic at age 9, and as Malcolm said, I'm a chairman of the Leicestershire Dyslexia Association. My parents took me there when I was 9 years old to have intervention, is the way you would call it, and I haven't left. That's the problem. We run an after-school workshop on Saturday morning. We have 28 children currently being taught, and that's been going on for over 40 years. We have a team of teachers and tutors that do that. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the whole of this conclave, just to give you a bit of overview and link back to BDA. But the first thing I have to do is I have to thank Kabir. I wrote down here cab and beer, because that's how he told me to remember his name. It is. And I always just remember him telling me this when he had a pint of beer in his hand. That's the only way I remember his name now. So Kabir was the one that said to me, "You're coming over to India." I went, "Am I?" He went, "Yes." So I got a number of Skype conversations brought me here. Now when I saw the programme for today, I thought that I was quite impressed that you were having a national conference talking about screening. In the UK, screening is there and it is still used. It is used, but it is one of them grey areas for teachers and assessors. The reason for that is that screening is not advertised properly in the UK to parents. And a number of teachers will do a screening tool or a screening test and then will tell the parent they've got dyslexia. And I'm talking mainly from the dyslexia front. And actually, they haven't. They've just been screened for it. Now, when I actually learned more about the Derby and understanding what it was, I was then quite a little bit on the edge, because to me it could be a checklist rather than a screening tool. And that's where we have in the UK. There is a brilliant definition that the British Dyslexia Association did previously, where you call these conditions comorbidity. We moved away from comorbidity about 10 years ago because dyslexia has nothing to do with medical profession at all. If I went to my doctor and said I'm dyslexic, he would probably shut the door in my face because he doesn't understand the word about dyslexia. An educational psychologist or a specialist teacher does. So it's purely education. The other conditions that we spoke about over the last 3 days are definitely linked back to their medical profession. We moved away from comorbidity to create this concept called co-occurring difficulties. And since then, and mainly because there's money behind it, we've now moved to this new terminology called neurodiverse, which you will see, hopefully, in a few more years' time, you may see this coming out there, which covers more, which looks at epilepsy and Tourette's as well. So, just thinking about this concept for dyslexia, you have a problem that I think you face is that it can take 5-6 months to get a diagnosis. More than that. So we have parents complaining it takes 5 days in the UK. I need to send a few of my parents over here because they don't know what it's like. In the UK, there is 4 ways the process of diagnosing for dyslexia. There's 2 ways that people can do on their own. So that is either with a checklist or a screening tool. Most screening tools done are computer-based and are done by the individual students. These do not say yes or no. These are looking at the terminologies that are in dyslexia, things like working memory, phonological awareness, processing speed. They will look at them and give you an indicator of what percentage of them difficulties you have. Within the UK, only 2 types of people can assess dyslexics, and we've already mentioned that educational psychologists are the mainstay for where people get assessed, and that will mean that a child or an adult will go to this person, they will spend between 3 and 4 hours, they will do the WISC, they will do many of the other tests we've seen, things like the RAT, the RIT, maybe the CTOP, and they will also look at IQ. That's an educational psychologist. They will then, once they've been with that child for 4 hours, they will then go away and write up that report, looking at all of that battery of data and giving an opinion, saying yes or no, this child is dyslexic. And also indicating if they have other specific needs as well. Majority of our schools have access to specialist teachers, very much like you have dyslexic therapists. Specialist teachers are teachers that have done a master's qualification in dyslexia. This is normally done at a unit. They have to have been teaching for so many years prior to doing this, and it takes about 2 years to complete. The first year is all about teaching dyslexics. The second year is all about assessing dyslexics. And within that second year, depending on what age range they are looking at, so if they're looking at children that are in university, depends on what age children they have to assess. They have to assess 3 children, they have to write a full report up, that gets submitted to the university and then gets assessed and commented back on, and then you have to do a dissertation at the end on one of their assessments, normally on their last one. That's why I've been tested about 7 times, because I've had 3 of these teachers do them on me, just because I'm adults. Back in 2009, the then UK government put £10 million, which Kabir hopefully will work out in a sec how many rupees that is. £10 million. Let me know and say. I'm not going to get my phone out like that. But basically, they put that into this, looking at this hub and spoke model. So there was two things it did. One, it looked at how we can teach dyslexic children in schools, and this is by putting specialist teachers in. So what it meant was if the government then actually paid for 3,000 teachers to be trained. Now since then we've had a recession in the UK and all them teachers have lost their jobs, but that's another story, we won't go into that. But then teachers, most of them now are private actually. So a lot of people have to go to get private assessments. And it's still a confusing world. Dyspraxia, ADHD, ASD are all referred via a GP either to an occupational therapist or a specialist or an educational psychologist that is specialised in that area. But they are a medical condition. So that is dyspraxia, ADHD and ASD. Dyscalculia, again, is done by an educational psychologist or a specialist teacher. The same speech and language is done by a GP or a doctor. You have mentioned the word dysgraphia many times over this conference. I'm dysgraphic. I've never been diagnosed. I've never had anyone test me for dysgraphia, but my handwriting is atrocious. So I've got to that. That's my own personal opinion, of course. It is one of the things that I've kind of learned that you've kind of really looked at that and moved that forward. So there is definitely some correlation between the Indian culture and the UK where you are moving swiftly forward, but lots of things are holding you back. Today we heard about your Disability Act, which was quite interesting to me because I'm fascinated with legislation in different areas. And our Disability Act was changed back in 2010 and is now called the Equality Act. And this has taken away all the stuff that you're dealing with currently, and that is that everything was listed in the Act, that has now all been removed, and a statement has been put in place. And he said, I'm going to read this, so bear with me. Under the Act, the definition that your disablement under the Equality Act 2010, if you have a physical or mental impairment that substantially or long-term negatively affects your ability to normal day-to-day activity. It's very simple. Majority of teachers, educators and professionals can say that dyslexia affects you every day. I'm having quite a good day because I wrote notes down and I do normally have quite good days. What the Act also brings in is reasonable adjustments. Linking back to education is where I'm going next. So reasonable adjustments is basically changing simple things to make things better and put people with a disability on a level playing field with other people. And I've now lost the page that I was going to look at to read from. Bear with me 2 seconds. There it is. The thing about our education system is it's still not there. The same as yours isn't. We all have the same faces. We all have parents that find dyslexia difficult. We have moved on. The main thing about the Equality Act is that it has taken in not just disability, it takes in ageism. We don't have a retirement age anymore. We're not allowed to make people retire. It looks at gender, it looks at sexuality, it looks at everything. That's why it's called the Equality Act, to make everyone and make it all equality. But within education, we then have other things that link back to it. In 2014, our education system was again changed. And I was quite interested to see that your act goes to the age of 18. And actually, our new education system has just now put put areas in to move to allow children to have access to services up until the age of 25. So it has now moved the goalposts that actually that when a child starts in school at the age of 3 and they have a severe problem or difference, it actually can go with them for the whole of their life. So if they're staying in education, work or employment, it can go with them all the way to their 25, and that funding is available. I think that you need to just carry on doing what you're doing. I think we hit on the head earlier that saying that educational psychologist is probably the way you need to go. But also then looking at your dyslexic therapists and how we can look at them. You are all teaching and supporting these children. And your intervention is there. There is nothing wrong with your intervention. And I'll come back to a little bit of intervention in a second. But if we can put some kind of qualification, accreditation at a level that works across all the states, we can then slow down, we can actually improve the lives of children a lot quicker. The thing about intervention is, for me, is that in the UK, you don't get intervention until you've got a diagnosis, theoretically. Schools have to do a certain amount of pre-intervention, but it's not like what we heard earlier of saying that having someone do an hour a day for 2 years. That is actually unheard of in the UK. It's probably about 15 minutes a day. So it's still there, it's grown, and it's more group work rather than individual. And that is just because there is more and more difficulties within our school. Everyone has to go to school, of course. We don't have, well, the US have a very big homeschool culture, the UK doesn't. And we are moving forward. But I went through the whole state system. So I went through the whole state system. I went through all my schooling and did do a lot of what Kabir did actually. I spent a lot of time in the vice principal's office. Not because I was naughty, he had a computer, I wanted to learn how to use PowerPoint, but that's because I like technology. And that's the thing that helps me every day. Without technology, I can't live my life. My dyslexia is so severe that I still have a reading age of a 9-year-old and a spelling age of an 8-year-old. And I'm now an international speaker, and I've told that now in multiple countries, so I'm quite happy with that. And I don't have a problem with it. But I think you need to commend yourself in what you're doing. There is also something that's very apparent that I'm going to end on, that is that this line of work is done by the same gender of people. It doesn't matter which country I go to or which conference I go to, the majority of people are women, and there's always a queue at the toilet. I don't know why, but that's just the thing. So I think you need to give yourself a round of applause, and it's been an amazing experience for me, so thank you to everyone for making me so welcome. If you do want to ask me a question, you can do. If we've got time.
Yes.
Wait for the microphone so I can hear you, because I'm deaf as well as dyslexic. Sorry, does someone say something? No. There.
So you raised a very valid point about accreditation, something I have been trying to forge a path to. So if you would talk a little bit about what are the things that should get accredited and who are the people? So should it happen at different levels?
I think you've got, yes, I think you're right, there is different levels.
Yeah.
So we have, in the UK, you have a level 7 and a level 5. A level 5 person would be able to teach dyslexia. A level 7 person would have to assess dyslexia. It's just the way the universities lay them out. It is a master's level, so it has to be a postgrad. A postgrad, that's right, isn't it? Yes, I got that, thank you. Postgrad, I can never remember the difference between before and after. I can't do that in my head. But that is that, and so long as we've had someone that has an experience working with children or working in the field, is actually setting up a course that then can be accredited and underwritten by university. I know that I've spoken to some people, and Singapore is a very good model to look at. So the Singapore Dyslexia Association have taken the BDA, the British Dyslexia Association model, have had the BDA accreditation board validate a course which a university over there does, and they have their own board that then validates their teachers. So just to give you the formality, a teacher has done teaching for 5 years and wants to specialise in dyslexia. They find a university, which is there's about 19 to 20 universities in the UK that want to do the course. That course is designed, it has elements which has to be set by the British Dyslexia Association. Things like they have to do some assessment, they have to do some teaching, they have to look at multisensory techniques, and they have to understand the basis of what dyslexia is, and go into more detail, things like working memory and so forth. That course is accredited by the BDA, by the British Dyslexia Association. So it's accredited by an independent body that then, once the teacher's done the course, they then get accredited by the BDA. So if ever you see a teacher that has the name at the end of their name AMBDA, they are certified to assess and teach dyslexia. That's what it does. And that is what we need to do. If we can come up with this concept of finding, like MBA, as being that starting point, and having all of the speakers here today on an academic committee, and getting the local university to underwrite it, you've already started that process forward. It also creates a bit of sustainability for an organisation, because of course, well, in the UK you have to pay for stuff. So there's got to be some way of funding it to make sure it carries on. And a lot of people fund it themselves.
Since you've been so generous with your time and your words, can you tell us a little bit about how the BDA got formed or consists of? Because the challenge in India is that there is no central body.
Yeah, so the BDA started over 40 years ago, and it started from local groups. So like Malcolm said, I'm chairman of the Leicestershire Dyslexia Association. We are affiliated to the BDA. We have 100 members. They are majority parents. There is a number of teachers. And we just run small conferences in our local area. There was about 4 of them groups that had started, and they wanted something national. And I now can't remember the lady's name because it's gone on my head. Jean Orgott, I remember it. So Jean Orgott was fascinated with dyslexia, and she created in her living room the British Dyslexia Association. And it has gone kind of from, it does a very up and down motion from being very big to very small to even big to big again, due to the amount of money it can raise to carry on going. But it is all about people coming together and wanting to do something, and actually wanting to make a change. The BDA claims to be the voice of dyslexics, and in some dyslexic eyes it definitely is. It always can do a lot more. We are not out of the woods yet with the world of dyslexia. But we are led by legislation a lot more, in the sense that our government, we do have the DSM-5, but we don't use it, or the DSM-4. Our definition is run by the government. They wrote the definition because they brought academics together to create it. And then there's bits that missed out, so other people have put bits in. So there's 3 definitions in the UK: psychological and the Rose definition. Hopefully that helps. But I think it's all about coming together and actually visiting places and seeing the model, and seeing how it can work to make lives better. And like I can't remember the lady sitting next to you in the group. I can't remember your name. Sorry? Lalita. I know we spoke a lot about Alpha to Omega, and Alpha to Omega is one of the gold standards in the UK. We use it all the while when we teach dyslexia. But our teachers have multiple intervention tools. It's not just about one thing fits all, it's all about doing it. And the same with testing, it's not all about doing the JW, it's doing the JW, the RAP, the RIP, and the CTOP. The CTOP is the one that I know more about, because I probably haven't done it 3 times, but that's another story. Anyone else have any more questions? You know, you've got to talk after I sat down. The next part is People, you've got to talk. That's right, isn't it? People have got to talk next. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Aaron.